The other day, I was scrolling Instagram, even though I know I shouldn't do that, and I came across a reel that ticked me off. I was ranting the rest of the day, and the reel essentially said something like, real successful artists don't sell courses, they are just out there being successful. And I have so many thoughts and opinions on this. And once again, this is just my opinion. Feel free to have your own. But there was so much wrong with that statement. Not only does it discredit professional artists who are passing on their wisdom, their skills, and their knowledge to others in the form of courses, but it also, once again, perpetuates this sneaky, systematic failure of the art world. And that is to celebrate this purity of an artist that follows a traditional path and focuses solely on their work. And it completely discredits the systematic discrepancy that most people simply can't afford to do that, especially when they're first getting started. And in this episode, I want to talk about deconstructing this traditional and very purist and elitist way of thinking about being an artist and claiming a path that is right for you, no matter where you are right now in your life, in your career. And of course, this is just based on my opinion as well as some facts that I pulled. But ultimately, I think there is something wrong with anyone who wants to impose their singular opinion and make it the only truth. As you know, with any industry, there are so many variations of success, from entrepreneurial minds to people who hustled their way or kept a day job. In fact, check out my latest podcast episode with Mason Curry, where we talk about his new book, Making Art and Making a Living, all about the different ways people supported themselves, whether it was inheritance or generational wealth or jobs or even some illegal activities through the ages. But I digress. There is still such a sneaky form of gatekeeping happening in the art world today. And I hear this a lot from younger artists who are about to graduate and they're listening to advice from their professors, some of which is amazing and supportive, but some of it is so misleading. And the misleading part, I think, is that anyone who tries to tell you that there is a singular path ultimately sets you up for failure, because there is no career ladder or career path in the art world. And this notion that you have to be focused on only one specific type of income, such as grants or sales through your gallery, that is the only way to be successful, is just not fair. And it's also not accurate, because there's only a small percent of artists who actually support themselves this way. And the rest doesn't mean that they're not successful, right? But ultimately, you get this vibe that if you are an entrepreneur, or if you go a different path, or if you hold a day job, that somehow it's a distraction or a compromise from the pure studio work that you would otherwise do. But let's take a look at the truth and some facts. And also, when we take a look at the origins of this existing system, we see that it actually was not built for anyone. And I mentioned the systematic discrepancy. And what I find interesting is that art school and many art institutions, even though I'm part of them and I graduated from art school and I'm so grateful for those experiences, they ultimately reward people who already have a safety net, whether that comes in a form of family, funds, or connections in some way. The truth is, many artists, especially those who come from underprivileged places or groups such as immigrants or underserved communities, those without generational wealth essentially, or random trust funds, the singular path of just focusing on their studio craft is just not something that they can afford. And does that mean they're less talented? Does that mean they're less capable? And does that mean that they ultimately can't reach their goals of being an artist and focusing all their time and energy on it? Absolutely not. They still have the full potential of everyone else, except some people had a head start in the form of support and funds, right? So what I find upsetting and frankly disgusting is when the industry looks down on someone who is either entrepreneurial or works in the kitchen or has a day job that helps them pay the bills and be a responsible adult citizen. To me, this is just highlighting the elitism that still goes on and that keeps doors closed, that perpetuates the gatekeeping and the inaccessibility of being an artist in this day and age. And it also romanticizes a struggle for people who might not have that backing and that support. And I find this so infuriating. I find it so outdated and unfair and absolutely unnecessary. But I also have seen the other side. I have seen incredibly successful, creative, business-minded artists who made it happen, whether it was through history, people in my community, fellow educators, coaches, and entrepreneurs. And I know that there's a way to make your dream happen no matter where you come from, what kind of resources you have or don't have. It might not be easy. You're starting a few steps back from the people who do have that support, but I believe that it is possible for all of us. Let's take a little break from gatekeeping, because one thing that I noticed is from my friends who work in academia, I often hear that the ultimate goal for artists is to continue either in academia or become famous and get picked up by a blue chip gallery, right? But this is a very limited option for most people, because even if you are pursuing those paths, you still need to support yourself, right? You still need to pay your bills, your rent, your food. And once again, if you don't have the backing of a rich family or something else, this is a huge challenge. And while I think teaching, being a professor, if that is your calling and that's what you're passionate about, is absolutely amazing, and I applaud anyone who is pursuing that out of genuine interest and love and passion for it, I think that there's so many other paths to take, and this shouldn't be the only one, considering in this day and age, at the time of recording this in 2026, there aren't many tenured positions left, and becoming a professor may require you to upend your life, move across the country, and get paid pretty much minimum wage to work a lot. And it's very hard work, especially if you're not tenured, and ultimately not leave you as much time for your studio, ironically. So sometimes it might make sense to not have a job in the academic environment or the art environment for the sake of giving you more space to pursue your profession. But once again, every situation is different. Everyone's path is different. So it goes back to my point of not telling anyone what to do with their life and also not looking down on them or treating them as less than just because they didn't choose the path that their professor chose, right? But let's look at the evidence, because in the art world, even today, even in this day and age, there's examples of people who built careers that nobody can ignore, and they broke that singular purist rule. One example is Faith Ringgold, and she's of course one of the most important artists, and she spent nearly 20 years teaching in public schools, which is so important. She had stability, and does that make her less of an artist? Absolutely not. It gave her the foundation and the funds to pursue her life's calling and pass it on to other students, right? Now, another example is Yayoi Kusama. She actually did not get into galleries right away. She became entrepreneurial, and she founded Kusama Enterprises, creating fashion and films to support her vision and reach people directly. And now, of course, she's one of the most recognized artists of all time. I recently had a guest on my podcast, Daniel Arsham. Now, Daniel has really taken the entrepreneurial route from starting his own gallery when he was in his 20s to eventually collaborating with brands such as Adidas and Dior and many others. And it was actually not always welcomed by the art world. And so he showed that you could be a successful fine art, capital A artist, and still have more business savvy and entrepreneurship embedded into your career. Now, these are highbrow examples, but I still wanted to highlight them because for everyone who's telling you that you can't do something, there's like millions of examples of how it's done another way, right? So this is my whole point. Not to say that I worship or idolize any of these people. I respect them for each one of their approaches. And finally, an artist you might not love or you might not agree with, but nonetheless, I do want to use Jeff Koons as an example because he actually started out by working at MoMA. I recently watched a little clip on Bloomberg TV about him. And in order to fund his big, ambitious sculpture and installation work, he actually became educated in finance. So he didn't start out by working in finance. He went back to school so he can work as a commodities broker on Wall Street to fund the production of his early sculptures. Now, today he's super famous, super wealthy and successful, but the point is he didn't wait for someone to give him a piece of paper or a grant. He went after the money, made it work, and whether you agree with it or not, it's admirable that he's resourceful and resilient in that way, right? And one thing I want to share, that 90% of arts graduate rely on multiple income streams. This, my friends, is a reality. This isn't like, someone did this. And there might be 1% or even less of people who solely make it, get a blue chip gallery right away, and are fully supported, right? So whether you are an educator, started your own business, or have a job in a completely different field, I applaud you for showing up for yourself, for advocating for your art, because ultimately, whatever you got to do, if it's legal and ethical, to support yourself, let's break this myth and actually just do what we can with what we have, right? And if you have big dreams to be represented by a fancy gallery, that's amazing. Keep working at your dream, but don't be ashamed for showing up and advocating for yourself in the meantime, because that is also beautiful. So my closing thoughts is that I believe that we all have a unique individual path. There are many ways to get to the same destination. Even when you're driving a car, just because you didn't listen to the GPS and took a back road, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It might take you a little longer. You might go the scenic way, but ultimately you're going to get there as long as you don't give up. So success, my friends, I believe personally, this is once again my opinion, and let me know in the comments what you think, but I don't believe that success is a singular purest path. I don't believe that you have to starve yourself and only be in the studio. I believe that by keeping the lights on and having enough money for your paint, paper, collage, photographs, whatever you're doing, is the smart way. And it's all about building connections, building a foundation, and pursuing your dreams and your actual lifestyle, right? Because you wouldn't necessarily make your kids hungry by not feeding them. And it's the same thing for us, right? Whatever we need, maybe it's medicine or insurance. We all have different needs and different lifestyles. And true creative freedom, both in our practice and in our businesses, comes from when we stop waiting for someone to approve of us, and I'm guilty of this too, or waiting for permission, and start building your own path. Life is too short. If you're worried about what your classmate or your old professor is going to think, we can respect them and be grateful to them, but ultimately it's our life and each one of us has only one. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'm so excited to continue this series where I think talking about finances, talking about how people support themselves is going to be more important than ever. And I'm really excited to share that I'm building a brand new series called The Art of Money on Create You. You can join the waitlist by going to the show notes, and I'm really excited to release a series of courses that are priced super affordably at $39 to help you navigate the financial systems, how to make money as an artist, how to plan your budget and your business goals, and so much more. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.